I'm recording this a few days after I did the video on the importance of VA benefits to retirement. And anytime I start looking at the past, it brings back memories. This particular video may not be appropriate for everybody. It's based on some of my own personal experiences. And but let me get right down to it. From late '76 to 2 years later in 1979, I worked for an NGO. NGO stands for non-government organization. And did some work in rural Mexico. And I went down there with great expectations, but then I came face to face with reality. We were working amongst an Indian tribe there. And the federal government, the federales, didn't care for the Indians and vice versa. So they were basically at that time cut off, getting virtually no government help. And I'm not sure they wanted any. But we went down there hoping to do something for the people. And in point of fact, mostly through the efforts of my wife, who was a registered nurse, we ran a clinic down there once a month for a week. So what we learned quickly was that the infant mortality rate was running about 50%. So our first goal was to try to reduce that mortality rate. So we brought down lots of vitamins, and we treated the sick best we could with what antibiotics were available. But very soon it became apparent that if we were actually successful in reducing the infant mortality rate, that was just going to increase the starvation, which was basically the root cause of all the problems. And of course, that problem was way beyond the scope of our capabilities. They needed food and a lot of it, and we didn't have access to that. In addition to food, they needed some help improving their agricultural skills and whatnot, and they were never going to get that from the government. So I went through a little bit of a crisis pretty early on, doubting whether we should even be there at all. But finally, the only way I could reconcile that was to look at the individual people on an individual basis, and whether or not we were able to do any good to help individual people. We weren't going to solve any kind of problems, not for the culture as a whole. So in today's world, we see so much that we would like to, that some of us at least would like to cure, and we don't have the capacity to do that. My favorite song is one by John Lennon, and the title of it is Imagine. If you're not familiar with that song, listen to it, listen to the words. Later, well, back it up a little bit. Actually, my experience in the Middle East was before that. That was in 1969. And I saw um, things that you wouldn't think human beings could do to one another. And certainly living in this country where we're not directly exposed to that kind of thing, it was um, an eye-opening experience. And maybe um, the thing that ultimately caused my wife and I to volunteer for that NGO work there in Mexico. Another thing in my experience when I came back from uh, the Middle East, that experience, um, I became employed by the Atlanta Police Department. In what would now be called CSI, or crime scene investigations. Back in that time, it was nothing like TV. No computers. All the fingerprints had to be manually coded so that they could be found. When you try to do a search for fingerprints, you had to first come up with a code of what you were searching for. Then that would, instead of being hundreds of thousands of prints to look through, that might be only 1,000. But there again, in that short period of time, I worked in some part about 350 scenes of violent death. And while none of it was as brutal as what I saw in the Middle East, it was still brutal. And you have to ask yourself, how can one human do that to another? So all that built up to the 2-year stint in Mexico. I bring that up, I guess, mainly because we are seeing such awful things in the world. Sometimes I ask myself, is the only way there's going to be peace in the Middle East is when they kill everybody? They each kill everybody and there's nobody left? Is that what it's going to take to have peace over there? I hope not. But so this is the reason I said this video might not be for everybody. The way I can handle all of that is look at it on an individual basis. My philosophy is a Christian one, in that do unto others as you'd have them do unto me, you know, I would have them do unto me. And as far as any kind of relationship to God, the other phrase I get from that is, in so much as you've done it for the least of these, you've done it unto me, meaning God. So that's what has kept me going for 77 years. I was lucky. I was brought up in a great home, great parents who set great examples for me. Not everybody in the world, or even in the United States, has that. So I give thanks for that every day. So this is going to be into this. I'm not trying to preach here, but the world is a lot more. It's very complex, and we've got demagogues out in the world today who claim to have the answer and just follow them and everything will be all right. I'm sad to say that's not the case. So, as individuals, we have to make up our mind what we are willing and capable of doing to improve the lot of fellow human beings. And if we could do that, this would be a better place. This video I'm going to place in my miscellaneous playlist. I do not want it to detract from my other videos, and some people may find this video offensive. I hope not.